Hey everyone, Tao here, back at it again with another video. In today's video I'll be doing a tutorial on how to draw Orcbolg from the Goblin Slayer. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into steps. It's going to be a bit of a long video, but yeah, just pause and go where you want. First we'll do a pencil outline, and then from there we'll do stage 2, which is outlining in pen and erasing the pencil. And in step 3 we'll do a basic two-tone, and then we'll add some details in step 4. In step 5 we'll do some shading, and then lastly we can add the background. So that's just a brief overview, so let's get started. Basically we're going to start with a pencil, and you don't need much for this, just a pencil, eraser and a pen. For pencil I suggest using a light pencil like a 2H, and it doesn't have to be, it's just that if you do use a light pencil it makes the next stage a bit easier because you don't have to erase so much. The reason I'm using a dark pencil here is just so that the camera picks it up. But yeah, so start with getting the basic shapes down, and don't stress about trying to make it look right, just try to get the size of the head and do a circle for that. Then do a line down the center of the body and another line halfway through the image. Now that's where your hips are going to be, or his hips are going to be. Then for the circle I like to do a line through it, and that's where pretty much the eyes are going to rest. And then I draw another circle in the middle, that's pretty much his rib cage. And then I draw 2 circles for the shoulders and a rectangle for the waist, and 2 more circles for the knees. I usually leave the hands for last, but what you want to do is focus on getting these major shapes down. Once you've done that, it gives you a nice base of where everything's just going to be laid out, and then you can start adding details to that later. Cool. So now I'm going to start from the head, basically break this down into shapes, and these are the shapes which I found in the image. Just have a look at it, and then don't try to overanalyze it, but certain shapes will come out to you, and hopefully that, well, this video will help outline those shapes and help you in your drawing. So what I suggest would be speeding up this video, and just like, you can skip like 10 seconds ahead each time, and then kind of just draw what you see. I will be giving tips throughout the video just to kind of help progress that, but this is the way in which I learned how to draw certain images, and it really helped with my art journey. I still have a long way to go, but I think we all do, until we actually get to a stage where we feel like we're happy with our art. So right now I'm just, again, doing a little bit of details. Don't add too much because you don't want to get lost in doing the details. Just kind of place the lines down, which you'll go over in pen later. Yeah. So again, just with the simple shapes, feel free to pause at any time and just copy along pretty much. Cool. So again, don't worry about any details or shading at this stage. You can do so if you'd like, because you're just using a pencil, so you don't have to not do any detail, if that helps. If you feel like the details will help you later on, kind of just knowing where things are, then by all means feel free to. But with this pencil you're going to end up erasing it anyways, so I suggest not worrying about the details here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Another tip would be, the reason I do the arms last is for this pose they're not very dominant. In some poses you'll have the arms kind of like, if, for example, if you have a reference image where a character is throwing a punch and there's a huge emphasis on the arms, then I don't leave those to last. I draw a line from the end of the fist all the way down to the foot to kind of get an idea of the motion of the figure first, and that's what we try to capture. So with this it's very simple because he's just standing still. Yeah. So here you see me going over the armor, and if you look at the armor in the reference image, all they are is just a bunch of shapes laid on top of each other, and so it's very easy to do. Cool. Now don't worry about going over any of the lines, that's totally cool. This stage is all just about laying down the basic shapes. and if you do end up making any mistakes, you can just erase them and keep on going along. So one thing I would stress about art is not worrying too much about making everything look perfect on the first go. And that's pretty much, if you get caught up on doing just one thing right, you'll kind of miss out on everything else. So sometimes it's good to just do it and see it through to the end, rather than not finishing the piece and just focusing on one area. So yeah, that would be one of my biggest tips about art, to be honest. It's about not giving up. And the thing was, like, if you do love art and you do love drawing, then you won't need to be told that. You won't give up, pretty much. And the reason that would be was because you actually enjoy doing it. Yeah. So a bit about the manga. I started reading Goblin Slayer would have been about half a year ago now. And what I really love about the manga is the art style and the story. I wouldn't say it's for everybody. It's a bit gory. If you like mangas such as Berserk, then this would be one that I think you might like. And they've made it into an anime as well, so that's pretty cool. You should check that out. The art from there, what I would recommend is going through the manga and finding scenes that you like of just different gestures of Orcbolg, this main character here, and then just practicing drawing those. Even if you trace them, it's totally fine, because it's all about a learning process. And the tips that you see in this video, hopefully you can translate them into any other images that you want to draw. And you can do this for any other manga character as well. Yeah. So if you get comfortable creating the base skeleton and then breaking the image down into shapes, you'll find it a lot easier to redraw any of these images. Cool, so here for the forearm, you see me build in another shape, and I just use the quick oval shape for the forearm. You don't have to overthink that. It's just trying to get a base down, and then you adjust it, so you'll bring the sides of it in and stuff. You'll see me do that over here with the eraser. Yeah. Cool. Now the hands are an interesting part, because a lot of people struggle with the hands. I would recommend just googling hands, or even just looking at your own hand and taking photos of it in different postures. Yeah. And from there, drawing as many versions of it as you can until you get bored. Otherwise, just what you could do is focus on drawing one different hand gesture each day, and I feel like that would really help you improve. Again, you can find lots of tutorials online which help you break certain parts of anatomy down into shapes that make it a lot easier for you to draw. Cool. So here I'm filling in the other arm, and again I'm keeping detail to just to a minimum. I'm not adding in any of the cracks. I'm just getting all the big shapes down. And yeah, so if you want to draw long, then it'd be a good idea to just pause and pretty much catch up to this area. So this is not the actual speed of it. I've slowed it down. Oh no, I've sped it up. So this is 2 times faster, I believe, than when I was actually drawing it. Yeah. So it's not about being the fastest at drawing. It's just about kind of making your way through it. As long as you finish, then that's all that really matters, and having fun doing it. Yeah. So over here you see me draw these basic lines. That's just for the knives, which are on the reference image, and you don't have to stress with these. I pretty much just draw on a basic half oval and draw on a basic handle, and that just lets me know where they sit on his body. Yeah. Cool. On this stage, pretty much the more detail you add, it will kind of help out with the pen stage later, because you'll kind of just know where everything goes. And again, it's not compulsory to add in a lot of detail, and I know I've been repeating that fact quite a lot, but yeah, it's just about not getting caught up on a certain area and just getting the base image down. Feel free at any point to kind of make small adjustments, so you could have his arm a bit lower and stuff, or you could maybe even take out the daggers and just kind of draw on your own armor and add your own patterns to it. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Cool. So one thing about the Goblin Slayer's armor is, if you look, it consists of a lot of zigzags, or just W and M shapes. And if you look at the image now and just look at all the sharp angles on his armor, I think, well, at least I found it quite interesting. And these are the things that you can pick up. So just draw everything in relation to the next object. Okay, what I'm trying to say there is, like, if you look at, if you draw one side of his leg, then you can draw a line from the top of the M to where the other M should be, because they're just inlined. So you want to look for points on the drawing which line up, and then that will really help you kind of get an idea of where everything's supposed to be, like where everything's spaced out. What I did here was I changed the angle of the sword and changed his arm. So yeah, now we're on step 2, which is going over in pen. This one is very straightforward. Pretty much just lightly erase over all of the pencil lines which you've done. If you used a light pencil, then you won't need to do this stage, but it does help clean up the image. And then you go over with a black pen. Again, you're going to erase over all of this again. So from this stage, you just want to get a nice thick clean base, because with pencils, well, what I do is I kind of do what they call chicken lines, where you scratch at the page with the pencil, and on this stage it allows you to just get some very solid definitive lines that help you carry the image. Yeah, and over here, this pen of mine, I was using a 0.3. The tip of it was split, so I had to go get another pen, and what I got was a Micron 0.1, I believe. Now, in terms of pen weight, since I haven't discussed this yet, basically I would suggest using, well, the pen point which you use pretty much depends on how big you want the piece to be. So that's how I see it. I drew this on a piece of A4 paper, but the overall size of it ended up being about an A5. So I used a 0.3, and I think I might use a 0.1 for the shading. But again, all you really need is just one pen, and it's just about how hard you press. Yeah. Cool. So over here you see me going over some of the lines, and I think I kind of improvise and add a little bit of detail of my own. But yeah, just like that, how I did on the helmet. So again, on this stage you just want to focus on getting those solid lines down. This part is sped up to about 2 times the original speed. Yeah, I was talking as I was doing this, but ended up just voicing over anyways. Cool, so I'll speed up the next process to about 4 times the speed, just because I'm sure you get the idea of where we're headed with that. Pretty much just go over the entire body and really get those solid lines down. Again, you can see the shapes really come out, and it's not just character specific. I mean, Goblin Slayer over here is a perfect example of shapes in a drawing, and you also find a lot of other shapes in any other drawing which you see. It's kind of fun when you look at it that way, because then everything becomes a bit of a puzzle and you start to break an image down into pieces, and then it's all about kind of putting them back together in your own way. So that's a little fun process which I've picked up. That'd be a good tip for while you're drawing. It's all about puzzle making. Cool, now we're moving on to the next stage, which is filling in the black, which is pretty much just two-toning it. So a good tip for this would be to squint at the original reference image. So if you have a quick squint, you'll start to see which areas look dark, and that makes it a lot easier to spot them. Now what you want to do is you want to fill out the areas. Again, feel free to pause and just fill in as you go. So yeah, this is pretty much just the bulk of the shading. and it's very common in manga style drawings. Yeah. So don't worry again too much about getting everything perfect. You kind of just want to fill in the major dark areas, and these are the shadows pretty much, or the areas of the armor which are black, and immediately it starts to add some depth to your image. So even if you leave the image at this stage, it's totally cool. I actually quite like this aesthetic. You can even add some color to this, and I think it will come out to be a very cool image. Yeah. So a big thing again is about trying to make everything look perfect, and I know I repeat that a lot. Ultimately, drawing should just be fun. This is just my opinion on the matter. It's about constantly learning and improving, and so I'm hoping that this tutorial can help out with that. It's certainly how I started learning how to draw manga. Yeah. Ultimately, people would think you're copying and stuff, but you can argue that art is just an imitation, so everything is just a copy of something. Yeah. But while doing this, you pretty much learn how to do this, and eventually you'll be making your own characters in no time, if that's who you want to go down. Yeah. So it's about picking up techniques while you're learning to draw someone else's character. Cool, now we're moving on to step 4, and this will be adding in details. So over here, his armor has a lot of cracks in it, that's obviously worn out, and so just draw some very light lines and have some fun with this. So add in your own details. You can even add in your own symbols if you'd like, kind of just personalize the character. It'd be pretty cool to have fun with this area. A common line which I like to do is, I kind of think of them as veins when I'm doing cracks like this. Pretty much just take a line and then split it into two, and it will end up looking as you see on the image right here. Don't stress again about trying to make everything a perfect line. It's just about kind of capturing the essence of like damaged armor in this case. So it's not like every line has to be where it is. You can do any random scribbles that you want, as long as it gives off the idea that the armor is damaged. Yeah. So when you're drawing, really think about what you're trying to show the other person. So what is it you're trying to convince your viewer of? It's all about creating the illusion of something, and yeah. Cool, so here you see me just filling out a bit more of the lower details, and there's a little bit of cross hatching I've done on the elbow there, or not elbow, the armpit. And yeah, we'll be moving into the next stage, which is the shading part of it. Now, for step 5, for shading, I'm just going to go over a brief outline of how to do that in pen. So it's basically very simple. I will take the chest area here, and I'll try to break it down. When you're shading, it's pretty much, well, when you're shading with pen, it's all about how close the lines are to each other. I'll just quickly draw in some of the cracks and the details, and then we'll get into the shading area. You want to think about where the light is hitting the object. Now, if we think that the light is coming from the top right, then the lines furthest away from that will be closer, and that's what makes it appear darker. So as you can see, I'm drawing the lines, and they're rather uniform, or they're about the same space apart, and I don't stress about making them dead straight. You don't have to worry about that. So all you're gonna have to worry about here is how close they are to each other. Now I'll go over one side and make those lines closer, and then if you squint your eyes at the image, you can see, hopefully, that the left hand side of it looks darker. So yeah. You can also do what's called cross hatching, which is going over in the opposite direction, and that really darkens it out and makes it a bit more 3D. Now with this stage, my biggest tip would be, don't be afraid of going over your other lines and messing your drawing up. Just don't stress about it. You can pretty much just, I don't know, it's pretty much just about doing it and not being afraid of messing up the drawing. Yeah. So here I'll draw an example with a sphere. Don't think it turned out too well, but So if we take a basic circle, like a ball, then we start drawing some lines on it. I reckon practice doing this. I think I also still need some practice on this. It's just about kind of clumping a bunch of lines together to make it look darker on one side and lightening up the other side. So yeah, hopefully this, yeah, if you squint then it looks alright in my opinion. But yeah, this should hopefully make that ball look 3D. Yeah, awesome. So going back to applying this to the drawing, his armor is grey and it's a bit darker than certain areas where light hits it. Now, as you can see, don't be afraid of going over an entire area. So I've started to go over the mask. Yeah. And I'm not worried about making these lines dead straight. As long as they're relatively straight, then that's cool with me. So what matters most is, again, how far apart or how close those lines are, because that's what really gives off the illusion of depth, pretty much. Yeah. So as you can see with the helmet, it's already kind of pushed back certain areas and it's brightened up other areas of it. Really just play around with the stage and kind of look at how light hits objects, and yeah, that's my biggest tip for this area. And later on it becomes really fun to do, and it can be a very powerful tool in order to show like depth very quickly and quick sketches. So I recommend just carrying a small sketchbook around and a pen and just pretty much doodling. Yeah. Cool. So with the chest plate, I go over pretty much the whole thing. That kind of just darkens it out. And I leave an area on the right just to kind of show like light coming off it. Yeah. But for the plates underneath it, since they're below it, I darken those areas to kind of push them back. Yeah. Hopefully the image is starting to look a bit more 3D, and yeah, that's pretty much the goal of this stage. You just want to make it look as realistic as possible, well, as 3D as possible. And you can tell that I'm not afraid to go over the lines, and you shouldn't be either. I mean, ultimately this drawing is just about having fun. Yeah, and then the more you practice, the better you'll get at this, and that's the really fun, rewarding part of this. You can see me leaving a small part on the shoulder there as well, just like I did on the chest plate. That's just kind of where the light hits, and yeah. Cool, so we're pretty much nearing the end of the video. I'll quickly just fill in the background. So the way I did the background was I just threw it into Photoshop and added a black into the back. You can do this with a pen, but what the background does is, since you make the back dark, it immediately brings out all the other lighter areas and makes them seem brighter than they normally are. And I'll pull up a comparison picture, so I'll put them side by side with and without the background, and it'll kind of just emphasize, well, pretty much just show you what I'm talking about. It'd be really cool to see what, well, if you did follow this tutorial, then it'd be awesome to kind of just see how you went about this and how yours turned out. I'd love to see it, so just catch me on either Instagram or flick me an email and attach your drawing. It'd be really cool to see. I hope that this video helped out and that these tips were helpful. Yeah, cool. And I'd really appreciate any feedback for any future tutorials, or if there's anything that anyone would like drawn specifically, then yeah, I'm very open to ideas. That'd be awesome. Cool. So yeah. Oh, and yeah, shucks. If you did really like the video, then please consider subscribing. It does help me grow the channel. Yeah. So again, you can see the image on the right appears brighter because the background is darker. So just squint and you'll be able to tell. Yeah. The background doesn't have to be black. It can be pretty much any color you'd like. And if you don't prefer the background, then just leave it out. It's entirely up to you. So yeah, have fun with it. Thanks so much for watching. If you really did enjoy the video, then please consider subscribing for future content. Hope you have an awesome day or night, depending on where you are. Cheers. Bye.